Happy are you, my gentle one, for the earth is yours to run, and I will not forsake you.
My first question is, how long have you been playing music?
Oh.
Tell us how old you really are.
I'll answer that in a roundabout way. I've been playing since I was about 15.
Okay.
High school.
What was the first instrument that you started with?
My mom tried to get me to play the piano, and I was terrible at it, and I hated learning how to read music. I just wanted to make music. I didn't want to have to learn count up and all good boys deserve fudge, and every good boy deserves fudge, and face and all that sort of thing. And so I didn't get that into it.
What instruments do you play now?
Currently, I am competent on the electric and acoustic guitars, mandolin, and bass.
Are you trying to learn any others at the moment, or you?
At the moment, I'm not. I'm just focusing on those because I'm focusing on recording good quality sounding demos of my next projects that I want to release. But when I return to it, I have a 22-string Celtic harp that I just love to play. When my son was a little baby, it was just the right size where I could hold him in one hand against my chest, and I could rest the harp against my shoulder.
Lull him to sleep with it.
And and I would just kind of lightly play and sing to him on the harp, and he just kind of would go right to sleep like that. It was a very special time for me. So I'd like to get back into that. I also have an 11-string Turkish oud, and I think it's a 5-string mountain dulcimer and some other weird things, but those will come with time.
I've heard a dulcimer put into a metal song, like the intro of a metal song. So those are, I think, really cool to mix in.
Yeah. Hi, Pepper.
How does your worldview affect your music?
My worldview doesn't affect my music a lot because I recognize that the world's going to be constantly churning, and I'll sing about that on occasion, but I like to focus my lyrics on what I know is unchanging, and I know is solid and trustworthy.
Nice.
Constantly there, is ready to be taken in and can be trusted to give me peace in a world that is constantly without it.
Kind of along those lines, which of your songs is your favorite right now? Like, I'm sure it changes from time to time, but right now, which would you say is your favorite?
I'm actually getting into some songs I wrote when I was a teenager.
Oh, fun. So back to the old stuff?
Yeah, I guess we can call it that if you will.
The original
It's
stuff.
all right. I didn't know much about how to play musical instruments then, but I just really wanted to worship God. I gave my heart to Messiah when I was 17 years old, and I went from not being able to play very well to almost overnight, all of a sudden these ideas came to me, these melodies and the ability of my fingers to move and try new things, and it was such an exciting time. But I'm looking at some of these songs that are based on the Psalms and my attempts to write Psalms myself, and I look at it and it's just so exciting because I love reading King David's Psalms. Mm-hmm. Obviously there's Korah, sons of Korah, and Asaph, sons of Asaph, they wrote the Psalms as well, but I just love David's heart. I mean, he screwed up majorly, he did things great majorly, he was passionate, whatever he did, he was doing it passionately, and I just really love reading about that. I mean, you can read about him in Samuel and Kings, and you can get the historical artifacts of who his parents were and ancestors and brothers and the things he did, the battles he was in, and this sort of thing, but you really don't get to know a musician until you look at his songs and his or her songs and his lyrics. Recently, I guess this is sort of a tangent, but a friend of mine, Tracy, handed me a CD of 2 of his songs, and he looked me right in the eyes and he smiled and he handed me the CD and he said, "Here, get to know me." And I thought, how profound.
Yeah, and I do a lot of visual art, and I think it's the same way. You don't really get to know someone until you see whatever their art is, like the lyrics of the songs or the heart behind whatever art they do.
Yeah.
What musicians would you say have influenced you the most?
Let's see. Looking back over time, I was really inspired to play electric guitar by Chuck Berry, Johnny Be Good. I don't know why. It was just such a neat tune at the time, and I wanted to play that. And back in my secular days, I really liked Rick Springfield and Bryan Adams, and was a number of secular bands that sort of escaped my mind at this point in time. But the faith-based musicians are Rich Mullins. I just love the way he writes about his life and his family and the world. And it's a real loss that he's not here anymore. And I really liked Michael Card.
Nice.
And I think, we can't forget about Phil Keaggy.
Right, yeah. Did you listen to much Randy Stonehill?
Not really. I heard a few of his songs, and I played a couple songs by a guy named, who was that guy who's considered the father of...
Larry Norman?
Yes, thank you. That was a good
My
cue, right?
dad raised us well on that type of music. So,
yeah, I really liked how those folks back in those days, they really put their hearts into it, and they weren't ashamed to speak the truth. They weren't ashamed to say something that would make you uncomfortable, that would ultimately take you to a place where you needed to deal with something in your own heart and your own mind and conquer it and move on. The stuff I'm listening to today, I can't listen to too much of that K-Love stuff.
It's all kind of watered down.
It's all sort of like it's a formula that they put together, and you take inputs such as grace, mercy, peace, love, teddy bears and rainbows and fluffy white kittens and happy little puppies and sandy white beaches and this sort of thing, and you turn the crank and out comes
See
a
what
song.
comes out, yeah.
I think one of the responsibilities of a musician who acknowledges that Messiah is who he says he is to try and nudge people in the right direction. And if all people are doing in the industry that is faith-based music is making you feel good, they're not doing their job, to be quite frank.
Well, yeah, like if you go back to the Psalms, you read the Psalms, and those weren't feel-good poems at all.
David
or
was
songs.
a bluesman. He really was a bluesman. You read Psalm 13. He's saying, God, have you abandoned me? Have you forgotten me? Am I
Where
alone?
are you?
Yes, and he's real. And I just love songs from Larry Norman and Rich Mullins and other folks, and of course, reading the Psalms of David and other psalmists that they're just so real.
Yeah.
There's one psalm, I think it's Psalm 72. I think it's a psalm of Asaph, if I recall correctly. It's right in the early 70s range, if it's not. And he's actually saying, God, I was like a beast before you. I was like a wild animal. And I didn't understand until you took me into your sanctuary and you showed me my state, who I am in you, and where the wicked who are making me so crazy, because I'm seeing them prosper and I'm not seeing any justice and this sort of thing. I really love reading about that sort of thing because it's so relatable.
Right.
I find if you walk into a worship service these days, in general, you walk in and people have had a rough week, especially during this awful pandemic. And the next thing you know, you're singing happy, happy, joy, joy, happy, happy, praise, praise, all this stuff. What if you're not feeling that initially? I'm sure a lot of folks aren't. At times, I certainly am not. What if we dealt with it first? Mm-hmm. How much deeper could we go?
Well, yeah, especially when we're in a more secular setting, and it's like, life isn't all rainbows and unicorns. There is a hard part that even Christians have to go through. It's a lot more real.
It takes some bravery to speak the truth and say, hey, God, I'm mad at you. If you're mad at him, talk about it. Yeshua, Jesus made it very clear that he wishes that we were either hot or cold in our hearts towards him. If we're lukewarm, then we're of no use to him. And if you think about it in the physical sense, if you put something lukewarm in your mouth, you have this almost regurgitation effect. You want to spit it out. But give somebody lukewarm coffee and watch how their mood changes, right?
Yeah. So you mentioned Phil Keaggy, and I know that he would play only specific types of songs on each of his guitars. Do you have anything like that where you're like, okay, this is my blues guitar, this is my jazz guitar, or...
I do. I brought 3 guitars for this evening's concert, and there are certain things that just really come alive on the 12 string. And there's certain things that you need that jazzy sound. And I recently heard someone who holds a bass in his hands say it's all in the pickups. It was another musician and I were talking about different basses and this sort of thing. He knows I play the bass, and he was showing me pictures of these beautiful basses that I don't have the money to buy. And we were joking around about that, and this one guy looked and said, "Oh, it's all in the pickups." And I'm so sad to hear stuff like that. Because
It's like saying you're only a good photographer if you have a good camera.
right, it's all in the camera, and it's not. I mean, it's the feel, it's the way the headstock is shaped, it's the tuners, it's the neck, it's the frets, it's the finish, it's the electronics, it's the amount of mass, it's whether it's bolted on or it's glued together. It's just so many different things, and I find that I have a number of different guitars that are hard to get around at times in my crowded, messy, creative space, because I just love these different feels and these different sounds. And when you write a song on a guitar, at least I'm hearing from other musicians as well, and from my personal experience, you have to keep it. You can't get rid of it, even if it's a junky one.
When you write it for that guitar, that's what you have to stick with.
Yeah.
Let's see. What's the coolest venue that you've ever played at? And we'll give you a pass. We haven't technically played upstairs yet, so you don't have to say the upper room.
I'm thinking that the one upstairs, the concert hall upstairs, is going to be the nicest one. I've been looking on your husband's Facebook posts and looking at all the hard work and the craftsmanship that's been going into it. A number of the places that I've been playing, they just kind of sweep an area clean and they just kind of push things around, and it's not really a sort of thing where they've put all this love and care and craftsmanship into. And there's been some nice congregations I've played at where things were set up and that sort of thing. But this is, I think, one of the few places I played where it's set up just for this.
Yeah.
And it makes the artist, when I walked into that room and I saw the nice glossy finish on the
that stage was a nightmare.
It looks great now.
Thank you.
It really does. She folks did a beautiful job, and I see, you've got a special spot right for the sound person. So many places I played, they don't understand the sound person needs to have the best seat in the house. Mm-hmm. They really do, so they can hear what's going on and they can make sure that the room is right. I played all these other places where they walk around the room, they keep getting up. One place I played, the guy was in a different room with a closed door, and I watched him. It was distracting playing because I felt so bad for him. He had to keep getting up and walking out of the door and walking around. Then he went back in and adjusted. And
oh my gosh, that would be terrible.
Yeah.
Do you have a dream venue to play at? Like if you could play pretty much anywhere?
I saw this one video of a concert on YouTube, and I don't know exactly the location, but there was, and I'd seen it in a couple different YouTube videos. Joshua Aaron and one other artist were playing in Israel, and it was near the ocean, and there were these rocks that were making up the background and around the stage in this area.
So like a natural amphitheater type thing?
Yeah, something like that. It was just such a beautiful setting with the ocean in the background, and it was a nighttime concert, one of them, and one was during the day. And in the nighttime, you could sort of see the reflection of lights off the water and the reflection of the different intensity of light off the sandstone, that beautiful Israeli sandstone that when the light hits it just right, it looks like gold. That look that inspired Naomi Shemer to write Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, Jerusalem of Gold. That look. I'd love to be somewhere like that, just to try that and be there.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Have you heard anyone cover any of your songs?
I don't think so. I'm not really known.
Are there any songs that people you play them for seem to love that you're not too fond of? Like any of your own songs that people are like, oh my gosh, I love this song. You're like, it's okay.
My sister once woke me up to the sound on my phone. She was of It's All Gonna Burn, Baby. And I think people tend to like that one. I'm not that into it, because it's hard to play that all by myself. I had my friends Eric and Dan and some other folks all singing with me, and you have this really nice wall of sound going along, and then you stand there with a guitar as a solo artist, and you're like, it just sounds so flat.
Yeah, yeah. It's something that you really need the
Yeah.
fullness of.
Yeah.
When you first started getting into music, what was your family's reaction like? Did they push you towards it? Did they try to stop you, or kind of indifferent about it?
My father was a little indifferent, but you have to understand, my father was deaf legally from the time he was 19 years old.
That would definitely do it.
And so the battles he was in the war, and back in those days, they did not have good hearing aids.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was excited when they finally came out with a technology as clunky and awful looking as it looked, where it actually gave him some...
He could actually
some help.
hear.
He had to actually read lips for the most part. My mom was a professional singer and a model, and she had actually given that up because her mother and father needed her. Her mother was actually vomiting up blood with tuberculosis and that sort of thing, and so my mom packed things up from New York City. She tried a couple different runs, but her mother and father kept getting sick, and she was there for them. But she really encouraged me. She had me do the piano lesson. She bought me my first guitar and my first amplifier, and I have to say that was a mistake. To get a high school kid like 15 years old a PV Bandit 65, I think that was a loud amp, and I did not know how to play. I think the way to go.
And the whole neighborhood knew that.
Oh yeah, and we were in the Adirondacks. We didn't have neighbors that close. But they knew. So I think it would have been wiser to just, son, play it acoustically first. But she bought me my first recorder where I started writing my songs and putting down different tracks. It was only 4 tracks at a time, but she would drive me. I didn't have my license at the time. She drove me all the way to Potsdam, New York, like 2 hours, 2.5 hours away, and took me to the music store there. And yeah, she was wonderful. She was always so encouraging.
Nice. So you grew up in New York and in the Adirondack area all your life, or do you move around a bit?
Yeah, I've lived in New York my whole life.
Nice. Yeah. Has that, particularly like the mountains and things like that, do you think that's affected your music much?
It has. It has. Even recently, one of my newest songs is called Adirondack Benediction. I've very much wanted to do a version of the Aaronic Benediction. And in recent months, a congregation I'm attending, they had us sing this one song called The Blessing. And it was based on an English interpretation of the Aaronic Benediction. And I thought, that's kind of nice, but they took the Aaronic part out of it. I didn't care for that particular portion of it, but I started looking online. I thought, wonder what other people are doing. And I saw Joshua Aaron doing this beautiful thing where he's walking through the streets of Jerusalem, and he's playing the piano on the cobblestone streets, and he's over at the Western Wall and on top of different buildings singing, and he's singing in a synagogue where the light's coming in just beautifully, and he's reading from the Torah scroll and singing. And I thought, well, I don't have anything like this. And I saw Marty Goetz and his daughter Misha doing this beautiful piano version. I don't play piano, and I thought, what do I have? I'd really like to do something with this. I'm inspired by it. And I thought, well, what about the mountains? And I started singing about the mountains, and it turned into the Aaronic Benediction in Hebrew and then in English, and it just felt so right. And I think if I do a video, I want it to be on the mountain trails and the mountain tops.
Yeah, it's beautiful up here, so why not use what you got?
Yeah.
What's your favorite color?
I like red.
Is there anything particular that draws you to red? Being a visual artist, this is like, ooh, let's ask this.
I don't know. My first car that I bought out of college, my dad gave me this old beat-up Volkswagen, and after I built up some savings, I realized, hey, I can get my own car, and I always loved Jeep Wranglers. And I just went right for the red one.
Nice. Okay, here's one that a rabbi suggested. If you were on a desert island and you could only have 5 albums with you, what 5 would you bring? And we'll assume that you have a way to play them as well, so you don't just haul them around.
Like even a record player, a real album?
Sure, yeah, why not? Whatever works.
Let's see. I think I would have Rich Mullins' Winds of Heaven, Stuff of Earth. Joe Satriani, Surfing with the Alien. Tough question. Michael Card, Scribbling in the Sand. I think that's the name of the album. I might have 2 or 3 Michael Card albums. And Phil Keaggy, Beyond Nature. And you gotta have if you're stranded on an island, you gotta have a blues album with you. I'd probably have Larry Howard, Bright Side of the Blues.
Very nice. I would say you have to have like a Beach Boys or something like that if you're on the beach.
So right.
But
It's so hard with just 5 though, right? Good point.
Have there been any collaborations that you've done with other musicians that you like really love? You were talking about the song that you don't like playing by yourself. So are there any others like that?
Yeah, that was the Darkness and the Light album, and I'm so thankful that people like Rabbi Stephen and Eric Lefevre and Dan Edwards and some other folks were able to make themselves available. It was really encouraging to me because it was my first real project.
Nice.
Outside of the home recording environment with only 4 tracks where I could really do something, and people really pulled together and did such a nice job to help me out. And there was The Way that I did with Eliza and Stephen and a number of other folks. That was a nice project. I've done a number of other projects with people that haven't come to light yet. I'm hoping that they're going to come out with their albums, but it's always enjoyable. I get so excited about it. I go overboard. I spend hundreds of dollars on guitar, bass, and mandolin setups because I don't want there to be any buzzes on my
Right, you want it
friends'
to be
albums.
perfect.
Yeah, and make sure all the strings are all set, and I'll even go out and buy equipment just for that one sound, and just to get that one sound on that one song, and just to make sure it's the way it needs to be. And it's just it's so much fun to put together a project with other musicians and to work with artists and photographers and this sort of thing, and see it all come together. It's so much fun.
Yeah. Oh, has there ever been a time when you've told someone that you're a musician, and like someone that knows you from work or something like that, and they're like, "Wait, what? You are?"
Yeah, because I'm a weird mix of artsy musical writer type with like Spock scientist type. So I can switch modes. And recently, a friend of mine, as I think I mentioned earlier, I've been spending more time on Facebook because I've been wanting to get to know what's going on in people's lives during this pandemic. And just in general, I haven't looked at Facebook very much over the years, but I thought maybe I should give it a try and see what's going on. And when I posted that I was going to give a concert this evening, one of my friends who I've known for years shared the post and said, I didn't know this guy played. This guy, we hang out, we're friends, and he's the goof of the gathering. But I didn't know that he played music, so that was kind of a funny thing to see that.
Yeah. What's been is that your favorite reaction to someone finding out?
It is, the goof of the gathering, yeah. That's going to stick in my mind.
Ba-bum.
Yeah, I would like to take this opportunity to thank both of you and all of you here at Utica's Upper Room Concert Hall. My friends from years and many years ago. It's such a delight to be here. I know it's just a live stream, but as a musical artist, it's such a downer, such a lousy thing to be cooped up and not to be able to express yourself. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to reach out, even though I can't see the majority of the people I'm playing to. And it's just nice to be able to release that energy and that passion and that love and that craziness again.
That goofiness, maybe?
Yeah.
And then the last question we have is, if someone wanted to follow your music or something like that, where could they go for that?
It's a good question. I hadn't really thought much about releasing my music. I'd made the Darkness into Light album a number of years ago, and I was all energized to release that. And then right as I was receiving the boxes of CDs, my father died. It just kind of took the wind right out of my sails.
Right, yeah.
And so I sold a few here and there, but a few days ago I signed up for a service that distributes my music to 21 different venues.
Nice.
And so I received an email yesterday that Apple Music has my Darkness and Delight music album there, and there's 20 other ones that will eventually get it. So I guess it's all in like Spotify, I think, and a number of other ones that normally do that. I'm not really into the streaming services, but it's all the major streaming services and places that do that.
And do you have a Facebook or Instagram or anything like that, or?
I don't have Instagram, and I do have Facebook.
Okay.
Just a regular Facebook account.
A personal Facebook account.
Yeah, I'm learning about what I need to do at this point in time.
There's a lot. I am too.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I see some artists and people that don't even have a Facebook account, and they seem to do fine.
Right. Yeah.
But I would like to put a website out there and that sort of thing eventually. I'd like to do some tutoring and some teaching on how to do certain chord formations and things. I'm finding over the years that people are asking me, how did you do that? Because I've worked very hard at, especially when I was playing at Beit Shalom, trying to find just that right spot to not be in anybody's way, but to add something sonically to the mix and that sort of thing. And I've got this unique style I'd like to share eventually. So I think it would be nice to make some tutorial videos and show other folks how to do that.
Cool. So when we get to that, then we'll throw a link up on our Utica page.
I'd like to do a YouTube channel. I think that'd be fun.
That would be really cool.
Yeah.
And I think that wraps us up for today.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for having me.
And thank you for coming. It's, from what I heard with the sound check, it's going to be really good.
Oh, thanks for the encouragement.
More than a carpenter's son, you have risen, conquering death, shattering the prison. For you have come to show me true love. You have come to show me true love. If blessed are those who weep and mourn, for the time will come when you shall be adorned with beauty for ashes, laughter for tears, pulling back the rented veil, having no fear, a joyous reunion, unending feasts. At first death it seemed victorious in its ultimate defeat. Blessed are you, peacemaker, you will be an earth shaker. Happy are you, my gentle one, for the earth is yours to run. Welcome, humble heart, in my kingdom you're a part. Embrace me when you mourn, and your joy will be reborn. So you give and take those friend requests with peeps you've never met, to restore your popularity and cover up regret. As your fingers dance from post to post, soon your heart will ache, 'cause someone wrote a stupid thing and it's more than you can take. Let's get real, stop your crying, live your life like you're trying. Don't you know how love is spoken? Maybe your heart wouldn't be so broken if you just get real. Yeah, I've got the lockdown blues.